right, so I got my new fuel pump for the wrecker, but I want to show you guys what's going on with this, because at first, whenever I took the line off, you know, when I first pulled this up here and started working on it, and I spun it over, fuel pumped out. So I'm like, all right, fuel pump's working. Now I've got it off. I made sure that the canister had gas in it. This is the inlet side. This is the outlet side. This side goes carburetor. This side comes from the fuel tank. There is gas in it. Look at that. It's pumping out the inlet side. A little bit coming out to the carburetor side, but it's coming out both. So there's a check valve in here that is most likely stuck or deteriorated. I don't know, whatever. I think these can be rebuilt, but I went ahead and bought a new one, and I'll worry about, I like tearing stuff apart and seeing if I can fix them. So I don't know if it can or not, because see that way this is made, this is all cast magnesium. Most likely, I doubt if it's aluminum, but it's got a steel crush ring around it that's actually put on with a crimping press. This is just a big flat piece of steel, a ring that they slide on here, and then they put it in a machine, and it comes in from both sides and forms it around there. These are two separate pieces. It holds them together, and there's a seal between there. So in order to take this apart and rebuild it, you'd have to cut that ring off and then be able to put it back on. So not impossible to do, but not economically feasible to do it. So I doubt that I'll ever rebuild this, but he used to make you give these old ones back as a core, a rebuildable core, so that they could rebuild them. Maybe I'll be able to put some penetrating oil in here, some Croil or something, let it soak for a while, tap on it, and maybe it'll get working again. I don't know. I don't know if I'd ever trust it again. But anyway, I'm gonna go back in, get warmed up a little bit, then I'm gonna come out and put the new fuel pump on the wrecker. Got a precision fuel pump from O'Reilly Auto Parts. I bought these before. They work just fine. Probably made in the, I don't know, probably not made in the USA. It's distributed by Ozark Automotive, Springfield, Missouri. Oh well, I don't know where else I want to get one. Maybe it is made in the USA, I don't know, I doubt it. Anyway, so I got this pump. It came with a gasket and a fitting, adapter fitting, so that's good. Got some installation instructions here. See a little brass fitting there. It's because the thread hole in the pump is too small for the fuel line to go in. Apparently they knew that. That's pretty good. You don't see that a whole lot. Got two gaskets. I don't know why. One of them's, they're probably different in some way. I don't know, maybe not. Let's see here. Maybe just in case you mess one up. But they look to be identical, exactly the same. So we'll use one of those. Keep the other one, another Ziploc bag. Let's see how good my patience is today. This is what I like to call good enough. I think I just saw some snow. It got cold out here again. It's weird. It's 80 degrees the other day. It's 30 degrees today. I guess it's not terrible. Better than Minnesota. Worse than Arizona. So yeah, what you want to do for your inlet here for this little fitting, you want to put some thread sealer of some sort on there. A mistake a lot of people make with using thread tape, they put too much on. Or they wrap it the wrong way. So on a typical right-handed thread, if you're going to put some thread sealing tape on, you want to hold it in your left hand. And this sounds really silly, but trust me, I've done this a million times. the wrong way probably. So you want to hold it in your left hand, and you want to take your tape and stick it under, because this turns clockwise to tighten up. Stick your Teflon tape under it, hold it to it, and rotate it clockwise until the tape reaches, just barely overlaps where it started from. Just rip it off of there. Now, all you want, if you think about the way a thread works, you got the male thread and the female thread, and the two threads mesh together with a certain amount of clearance between them. And if you get too much tape in there, it's just going to push it out of the way and roll it back, and then you get a pile of tape back here at the back and nothing on the threads. So you just want enough down in the threads to go between the point of one thread and the valley of the other thread to seal that up. If you put more than that, you're wasting it, because it's not going to do anything. It's going to leak. So just put one wrap around there. And the reason you want to hold the right hand thread in your left hand, put it under it and roll it clockwise, is because the end of the tape that's on top will, when you screw this in, it's going to push away from the edge. If you rolled it the other way, when you rolled it in, it's going to unroll the tape. So I know it's just common sense, but it's just a lot of things that people don't think of, and they wonder, I sealed that up with some tape, why is that still leaking? Because you didn't put it on right. All right, so now what I'm going to do is screw this fitting in here like so. My wife watches this cooking lady on YouTube. It's funny, she says like so a lot. I'm not making fun of her southern accent, because I have one myself. I think it's just funny. So that is another 1/2 inch. That is a 9/16. Put the 9/16 on there like so. Turn it clockwise. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. Now, if it's left-handed threaded pipe, which I haven't had the pleasure of working with, but left-handed screws, a lot of times, that brings up another point. A lot of times left-handed screws, bolts, machine bolts, have to be sealed as well. And there's a lot of that in the world. As far as pipe threads, I don't know if I've ever seen a left-handed pipe thread. Let me know if you all have. I'm sure they're out there. There's probably a need for them. Well, come to think of it, on a cutting torch, there's a left-handed thread for the gas side. There you go. So you don't mix them up. But you don't seal those, because those have a tapered seal on them. You don't put nothing on them. That's a no-no. All right, so we've got this. You don't want to go crazy with this. This is brass and magnesium. You know, you can really, if you're not careful, over tighten that. You look at that and you can see, I don't know if you can see that, there is no Teflon tape balled up between the brass and the aluminum or magnesium. It is all on the threads. That is what you want. If you do it the way I showed you, maybe you'll get lucky. Okay, so that is in there. Now, on the other hand, the fuel line here that threads into that brass fitting, it has a double flare nut on it. So you don't seal that. You don't have to. You can. You know, if you think your flare is bad, you're really not supposed to use these flares over again, but everybody does, and it almost always works just fine. But I have seen where this was what I like to call here in southern Indiana, boogered up a little bit. So, you know, you might try to get yourself by putting a little thread tape on that, just to get you through until you can get it fixed right. Might be stranded on the side of the road or something. So anyway, this is tapered, and there's a male mate to that inside this brass fitting. You tighten that up in there tight, it seals it. So you don't put nothing on that. I'm not gonna put anything on it this time. The flare is in good shape. All right, now, well, I guess, speaking of that, I can go ahead and put that on and get that ready, because that's easier to get to right now. And I should be able to slide that down in there. Well, no, I probably won't. I'm gonna leave that off, because I remember I took this other one off to get this pump arm out. I think I had to take that line off, so I'm gonna leave it off. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna check with our little pick here to see if the mounting bolt holes that hold this pump on, look, I'm gonna straighten my collar up. My wife was standing here behind me. She'd done that for me, because she's awesome. So I'm gonna use this, I'm gonna poke this through the holes where the bolts go that hold this fuel pump on, and see if they are blind holes or if they're windows into the crankcase. You can see those mounting holes down there. I'm gonna stick this through there. Oop, look at that, went all the way in. That one there is blind. But the one closest to the front of the engine went all the way in the crankcase. That means that we have to put thread sealant on the bolt that holds that pump on this close front, closest to the front. Because if you don't, that the oil in the crankcase splashing around will work its way up the threads all the way to the outside and leak. Where, if you look at this pump, you can see this side looks pretty clean. That's the one towards the back of the truck. The one towards the front of the truck, there's oil and crap all over this. And that is because the oil slowly leaked out around this bolt and picked up all kinds of dirt and everything else. Look at that, it ran down to here. There was an oil leak, which, as you can tell, this engine has its fair share of oil leaks, which is common with the FE. You can put these together where they don't leak. I can put them together. I've had pretty good luck. But the reason I have pretty good luck doing it is because I use these. Remember these? These little trusty stones? Right in here, see this intake manifold is actually, the valve cover sits on the cylinder head and the intake manifold on an FE engine, which stands for Ford Edsel. And these gaskets are prone to leak, especially the one up here on the China wall that runs across from cylinder head to cylinder head on top of the deck there. But you can, I don't ever use a gasket there anyway, but what I'll do, if you have a real smooth surface and put silicone on it, the oil is going to work its way under it. So you can take a kind of a rough file, maybe 100 grit or 100 grit stone, not a real rough file, but something that'll scuff that up a little bit, or 100 grit stone, and run across there flat and put those score hatch pattern marks in it, and that gives the silicone, and the same thing on the bottom side of the intake manifold, that gives the silicone something to adhere to and bite to, and then you have a lot less chance of oil working its way under there as the engine heats up and cools down, heats up and cools down, expands, contracts, expands, contracts. I'm not saying it'll never happen, but it definitely will last a whole lot longer. I've had good luck with it. One thing about these FE engines, they're pretty much all based off of the Ford 352. This is a 360. They made a 331. I don't know, 331 or 332, I can't remember. I always get that confused. There's a Chrysler, same way. But anyway, they got those. They got the 352, the 360. They actually have a 361. I don't know how they got that. I mean, it's probably the same exact engine, but they called it a 361. They had a 390. They had a 410, a 427, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, 428, I know that's not it, but that's the main ones. But that's all based off of the 352. And if you look at this, usually on these FE motors, right up here on the block, right below the cylinder head, you scrape all this grease and crap off. There's probably a casting that says 352 right there. So you scrape some of that crap off of there. And look at there. It says 352 right there. I know you may not be able to see it, but it does. A lot of guys will be like, I'm gonna go junkyard and I'm gonna get me a 428. And the guy says, well, I got me one. And he goes out there and he says, it's in that old Fairlane over there, or it's in that Mustang. And you go look at it, he said, well, that ain't no 428, that's a 352. I don't want that thing. And you might have just messed up if you said that, because the 428 has that same casting mark on it. There are some differences in the 428, but you can't see them while the engine's in the car, unless it's a Super Cobra Jet, not a Cobra Jet. The 428 Cobra Jet, now you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the only thing that makes a 428 a Cobra Jet is the ram air hood. And I think a 428 Super Cobra Jet has an external counterweight on the crankshaft up here. I'm not sure the 427 has 352 on it, because that's a different engine. It's a 4-bolt main with side bolts through the side of the girdle that hangs down there where the oil pan bolts on. And that might be a whole different casting. I don't know. I know quite a bit about Fords because I'm a Ford guy, but I don't know everything about them. I'll be the first one to tell you that. So anyway, what I'm going to do now is while I can still barely feel a little bit in my fingers, I'm going to get up here and I'm going to put some oil, some penetrating oil on this stone, and get up in here and hit this flat spot, this gasket surface, just to see how it feels. You can feel the rough spots. I just felt one. And that rough spot that I felt might not have made a difference, because I believe it was right around the opening where the arm goes in. It probably wouldn't have done a thing, wouldn't have hurt a thing. But hold it good and flat on there. Make sure you hold it flat and go over the whole thing until the drag all over it feels even. And it looks good. And then you drop it and break it. It didn't break though, that's good. Folks, it's snowing out here. I don't like cold weather. The older I get, the less I like it, and I didn't like it much in the beginning. So then I'm gonna spray my carburetor cleaner on there, just to clean that off real good. Boys and girls, that's a pretty clean mountain surface right there. That's pretty good. All right. If you remember, one thing I was telling y'all about the other day about that carburetor, how I could tell it had Indian head shellac all over it. And they don't call it Indian head anymore. This is the Permatex brown gasket shellac. It says original. I don't know about that. I like this stuff. This is what I use on a lot of my, so if I'm using a cork gasket, I'll put this stuff on there. And I'm gonna tell you, as long as you don't over tighten it, which is very common with cork gaskets, is over tighten them, and I'm sure we'll go over that at some point. As long as you don't over tighten them, cork gaskets work really good, especially if you got some of this stuff on them. So first thing I like to do, put the gasket on, is I'll get this little nifty dauber ball and kind of squish it to one side, let some of that drain down in there so that it don't get all over the bottle when I pull it out. I have to be careful with it. And then set that down, and I'll dab a little bit of this on there, on that sealing surface. Or daub it, because that's a dauber, it's not a dabber. Maybe it is a dabber. Call it a dabber. Maybe where you're from, they call it a dabber. call it a dauber. That's a dapper little dauber you got there. All right. So you put that on, then put my gasket on there. Oop. Don't put it on upside down. You didn't have it right way around. I used to have this German boss where I worked and did my apprenticeship at, and really cool guy. But he had broken English, like, you know, I have broken English. He probably spoke better English than I do, honestly. But he would say, "You don't can do it." Instead of "you can't do that," he said, "You don't can put it on that way." He was hilarious. Really cool guy. I wonder if he's still around. Been a long time since I've seen him. I quit that job in 2007. Went in business for myself. Haven't seen him since. So that's been a long time. 15 years, 16 years. All right, we'll let that sit there for a second. Just find any place to set it, you know, just any place where it kind of looks like it's got a, you know, a little bit of a place that fits. All right, then we're gonna get my fuel pump mounting screws, mounting bolts, whatever. I call them bolts. I got a habit of calling them screws in the tool and die trade because everything's a cap screw. And what I'll do is this one that's got to be sealed, I'll hit it with some carburetor cleaner, kind of wash it off there, and I'll put some, my thumb is getting numb, people. I don't want frostbite. I may have to take a break, go warm up. Put some thread sealing on there. Look, this stuff is so cold it won't even stick to that bolt. It won't even run. There we go, got a little bit on there. Same thing, you just kind of want it in the threads. It's about too cold to be working out here with your skin exposed. Usually the warmth from your hands will warm stuff up like that, but my hands ain't warm enough to do it. All right, I'm gonna put this screw in. If I can get this down in there. Out of the way, or power steering pump out of the way. Put that up there, like so. Feel nothing in my fingers. Got to put your breath on it. Warm your hands up enough where I can feel. All right. You see if I can get that screw in there. Okay. That started. Let's see if I can start this other one. Let's see if I can run that one up that is started a little bit more. Not all the way, because I don't want to pinch it there. But then, there we go. Just pull it up there a little bit closer. I'll get this other bolt started. I'm stubborn. My fingers are frozen, but I don't want to quit till I get to a stopping point. Okie dokie artichoke. I need to get my 1/4" drive ratchet so that I don't over tighten those. And I'm gonna, while I do that, I'm gonna go to warm my hands up.
6 hours later.
I'm back. Hands are thawed out somewhat. Let's see here. The old trusty swivel. You gotta go crazy on these. Probably by factory settings, probably 25 foot-pounds, but That is a 3/8 16 bolt. It'll take a lot, but you can over tighten them. I'm just hitting them a little bit on both sides with my little 1/4 inch ratchet, and I'm probably putting a good 25, maybe more on there. 3/8 bolt will take a lot more than that, but we are squeezing magnesium. I think that's tight enough. All right. I am happy with that. Now the next thing we do is put our fuel line on. Our hard fuel line, that is. And I've got this old piece of hose on here just so I can, you know, I don't need that now. I'm just gonna go for it. I think this pump is good. I am confident. Sort of cautiously optimistic, I think is what you'd call that. I'll stick this on here. This old air cleaner just barely good enough. It's rusted through from having mouse nests in it, but yeah, there. That's a weight reduction. Now we will proceed to putting the power steering pump back on. It appears that these were spacers for the back bolt. I thought they were on the front where it bolts to the water pump, but they were not. They were in the back. See, they're supposed to be, they look like about 5/8 of an inch. They're supposed to be a round, like aluminum spacer back there, but apparently they lost it and used washers, which is fine. I've done that before. Eventually, when I do more work on this truck, I'll make a spacer for it. Take 5 minutes to make one on a lathe. But for now, yeah. All right, so let me get my socket ready. All intents and purposes say that we should be able to do a startup on this thing. I have said those famous words before and found out later that no, it was not time to start it up, but we're going to try it anyway and just see. It'll take a few cranks to get the fuel up from the gas tank to the fuel pump and into the carburetor. So I'm going to use the old choker-rooney. All right. Might need a little help. So we're going to dump some gasoline down in there. Oh, you know what? I forgot to put the coil wire back on. I bet it would have started by now without that primer shot. Let's just see. Another shot. leaks anywhere. I did change the oil on this yesterday, so missing now. We weren't missing yesterday. Just running out of fuel. Got another bit of an issue, apparently. So a lot of times, if you ain't careful, it'll frustrate you about these old vehicles, because you fix one thing and then all of a sudden, for no reason whatsoever that you can imagine, you got another issue. And now we have a ignition misfire. It's a proper technical term for that, I guess. But what I will do is loosen all these. We'll try to start it up and keep it running enough to warm up, and we can check, see which cylinder's missing. I got spark right here on this plug wire going into the distributor cap. Try one. One is sending fire. Five. Sending fire. One. Two. That receiver cap off and see what it looks like. It looked good the other day, but I didn't look at it real close. But I looked at it. Well, it looked clean. Rudder button don't look terrible. All right, so the lovely Miss Nikki has gone to town to get me some more parts for this. Cylinders 3 and 7 are not firing. Probably the spark plugs. Couldn't tell it before because it wasn't getting adequate fuel to run right in the first place. Now it's getting fuel. It actually sits and idles really well. But it's got dead miss on cylinders 3 and 7. I'm gonna pull the plugs out, gonna replace the plugs, the wires, go ahead and replace the cap and rotor, maybe even the points condenser. They looked okay. I mean, even the cap and rotor looked good, but I'm just gonna go ahead and replace all this stuff, one thing at a time. First thing I'm gonna do is pull spark plugs out of it, look at them. I made up this quick little arrangement, just took a piece of 2x4 and you know, made a place to put the spark plugs in so I can look at them when I pull them out. It's real important to know your cylinder arrangement on the V8s. on anything really, but V8s can be complicated simply because like Ford, the right side, which is what I call the passenger side, or what most people do, sitting in the vehicle, the right side of the engine. On the Ford, the cylinder head sits farther forward than the one on the driver's side or the left side. On the Ford. On the Chevrolet, GM, General Motors products, it's opposite of that. The driver's side sits farther forward, and the farthest forward cylinder is always number one. So on this one, on Ford, the cylinder arrangement goes starting on the number one cylinder, which is the passenger side front cylinder. The cylinder arrangement on a Ford is 1, 2, 3, 4. And then starting on the other side is 5, 6, 7, 8. On a General Motors, starting on the opposite side, it's 1, 3, 5, 7, and then the passenger side 2, 4, 6, 8. It's important to know that for the purposes of running your firing order properly. If you don't know the cylinder arrangement, then you can't put the spark plug wires in the right spot. You got to know the rotation of your distributor, the cylinder arrangement, and the firing order. So I made this. This shows showing the front. This is the Ford showing the front. You'll see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 starting on the passenger side. This side, General Motors, is 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6, 8 starting on the driver's side. So this is something real easy that you can whip up real quick to use. That way, when you pull your spark plugs out, you just stick them in the corresponding hole, and you look at them, and you know which cylinder you're having a problem with. I don't think this is an issue with the engine itself, because whenever it cranks over really smooth. It doesn't have no gallop up and down to where it shows there's a cylinder weaker with compression than the other ones or whatever. It sounds pretty consistent overall, the cylinders, when you're spinning it over. So I'm pretty confident that's not the main issue with this. Probably just have some bad spark plugs. I'm gonna replace those first, and then we'll start it up, see how it runs. If it's still running, rough, we'll move on down the line.